Serena Hill had it all: success, love, and a bright future, until the ultimate betrayal shattered everything she held dear. Her fiancé, Theodore, and her best friend, Sophia, conspired to destroy her world, leaving her broken and lost. But in the chaos of heartbreak, Serena found an unexpected escape in Miami, where a new, spontaneous marriage to Maxim Veil gave her a second chance at love and self-discovery. Can she rebuild her life and embrace the future? Don't miss this powerful story of betrayal, healing, and transformation. Where are you watching from? Subscribe to join Serena's journey. Serena Hill had always considered herself a woman who was in control, especially in the art world, where she was hailed as one of New York's rising stars. Her modern pieces adorned the walls of some of the city's most prestigious galleries, and her name was often spoken with admiration at exclusive cocktail parties. Yet, in the quiet corners of her life, where she lived with her fiancé Damian Harper, her world was anything but flawless. They were supposed to be the perfect couple, the ones everyone admired. He was the successful financier, she was the brilliant artist. Together, they seemed to have it all. But in truth, Serena had been living in a gilded cage of expectations, bound by the illusion of perfection. It was a Tuesday morning when everything began to unravel. Serena sat in her sleek, minimalist apartment, the smell of coffee lingering in the air as she sipped from her mug. She reached for the stack of mail that had arrived. Bills, magazines, a few invitations, nothing unusual. But then, buried between the glossy pages of a fashion magazine and an envelope from her lawyer, there it was, the wedding invitation. The ivory paper was embossed in silver, the kind of elegance that normally would have made her smile. But today, it felt like a slap in the face. The invitation was for the wedding of Theodore Grayson, her fiancé of 4 years, and none other than her best friend, Sophia Bennett. Her heart stopped for a moment, a coldness spreading through her chest. She didn't need to open it to know what it was. The return address confirmed it: Theodore Grayson and Sophia Bennett, cordially invited to witness their union. The words burned her throat. Her fingers trembled as she looked at the elegant script, each curve of the letter mocking her. Theodore, the man who had been her world, the man she had planned a future with, was now marrying the one person she trusted most in the world. Sophia, her closest confidante, the woman who had been there for every triumph, every failure, and every personal secret. The betrayal was unimaginable, yet somehow it was staring her right in the face. Serena's mind raced. She could remember every moment they had shared. Their first date at a quaint cafe, their late-night walks through Central Park, the ring he had given her, the promises he whispered into her ear under the city lights. It all seemed like a lie now, a carefully crafted illusion. She had been so blind, so caught up in their perfect future, that she hadn't seen the cracks that had started to form in their relationship. The painting she had been working on for their wedding, the one she had poured her heart into, was now a cruel reminder of her misguided faith in Theodore. The colors, once vibrant with hope, now seemed muted, like a love that had faded away. The image of them, laughing, in love, perfect, mocked her as it sat unfinished in her studio. She stood up from her desk, the weight of the invitation heavy in her hands. The apartment, once a sanctuary of creativity, now felt suffocating. The sleek walls seemed to close in on her as she moved toward the window, gazing out at the bustling streets of Manhattan. The city that had seen her rise now felt like a prison. Somewhere down there, in one of those towering buildings, Theodore and Sophia were likely planning their perfect day, while she was left with nothing but the broken pieces of a future she had imagined. Her phone vibrated, texts from friends, no doubt already buzzing with the news. The gossip, she imagined, had spread like wildfire. Just like everything else in her life now seemed to be crashing down. Miss Harper, the artistic genius, abandoned for her best friend. Serena's jaw tightened. The tears, which had once threatened to spill, suddenly felt distant. Anger, cold and sharp, was replacing the hurt flooding her veins with a sense of determination. She couldn't stay here, couldn't bear the whispers and the stares. She needed to leave, to escape the suffocating grip of betrayal and expectation. "Cancel everything," she spoke into the intercom, her voice eerily calm. "Clear my calendar for the next 2 weeks." The gallery opening, the show that was supposed to be the pinnacle of her career, none of it mattered anymore. There was no point in attending events or pretending to care about the art world when everything she had once built was now a lie. The invitation crumpled in her fist as she threw it into the trash. But it wasn't just paper she was discarding. It was the illusion of her life, the belief that love, loyalty, and trust could be so easily given and so violently taken away. She moved quickly, her movements sharp with purpose. Packing her suitcase, her mind was set on one thing. Getting out of New York, she booked the earliest flight to Miami, the city of spontaneous decisions and clean slates. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was running, fleeing the life she had spent years creating, but she was also reclaiming herself. As she stood at the airport, looking back at the city she had once loved, Serena realized something profound. Sometimes, you have to lose everything to find yourself. She had been broken, yes, but in that fracture, something new could emerge. Whatever awaited her in Miami, it couldn't be worse than staying in a life that was built on lies. The city lights of New York faded into the distance as her plane took off, and for the first time in a long time, Serena felt a sense of freedom. Serena's first few days in Miami were a blur of bright sun, salty air, and the distant hum of a life she couldn't escape. The city, with its glittering skyline and endless stretches of sand, felt like a world that could erase the past. She wandered through the streets aimlessly, allowing the warm breeze to wash over her, as if it could cleanse her of the betrayal that still clung to her skin like a second layer. Every corner of New York seemed to suffocate her now. Her art, her career, the apartment she had once adored, everything had been tainted by Theodore and Sophia. It wasn't just the betrayal of love, but the overwhelming realization that the life she had built had been a lie. The whole city, with its tall buildings and flashing lights, felt like a mockery of the dreams she had once pursued with such conviction. She had to leave. She had to run. Miami was supposed to be her escape, a place to find herself again, to live without the constant reminder of the life she had lost. But when she checked into her hotel, a sense of loneliness gripped her. She didn't know anyone here. The people she passed on the streets didn't know her story, didn't know the heartbreak she carried in her chest. She was just another face in a city of millions. And yet, she had never felt more alone. Her phone buzzed with messages, but she ignored them. Friends who were concerned, family who wanted to check in. They couldn't possibly understand. They couldn't know the depth of what she was feeling. The entire world had shifted beneath her feet, and she was still trying to find solid ground. One evening, after a long walk along the beach, Serena found herself in a small, dimly lit bar on Ocean Drive. The neon lights outside flickered as if they were trying to escape their own realities. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter and the low hum of conversations. But Serena wasn't there for the company. She was there for the anonymity, for the feeling that no one knew her. She slipped into a seat at the far end of the bar, ordering a glass of wine without even thinking about it. She needed something to dull the edges of the thoughts that had been spinning in her mind since she left New York. As the night wore on, Serena's thoughts began to fade into the background. The chatter, the clink of glasses, the soft thrum of music, it all became distant, like she was watching someone else's life unfold. That's when he walked in. Maxim Veil. She had no idea who he was, but the moment he entered the bar, everything around her seemed to shift. His presence was magnetic, his confidence palpable in the way he moved through the crowd, cutting through it like he owned the place. He wasn't the loudest person in the room, but he commanded attention without uttering a single word. His eyes met hers for a brief moment, and there was something in them, a depth and intensity, that made her stomach flip. He walked toward her, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth, and took the seat beside hers without asking. "Is this seat taken?" His voice was smooth, low, with a trace of an accent she couldn't quite place. Serena hesitated for a moment, unsure whether she wanted to engage, but something in the way he looked at her made her feel seen. For the first time in days, she felt as though she wasn't invisible. "No, it's all yours," she replied, surprised by how calm her voice sounded despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. Maxim ordered a drink, a cocktail she couldn't pronounce, and they fell into easy conversation. At first, they exchanged pleasantries, the typical small talk, where she was from, why she was in Miami, what he did for a living. But there was something about him that made it easy to talk. He listened with an intensity that made her feel as if every word she spoke mattered, as though the broken pieces of her heart weren't just discarded fragments, but a story he wanted to hear. As the conversation deepened, Serena found herself telling him about her life in New York, the art world she had fought so hard to succeed in, the betrayal she had endured. She spoke freely, something she hadn't done in months, and as she did, she realized that in the presence of this stranger, she was shedding the layers of her past. Maxim didn't judge her. He didn't pity her. Instead, he simply listened, and for the first time since she left, Serena felt the burden of her past begin to lift, if only for a moment. The hours seemed to slip by unnoticed as they talked. When Serena finally looked at the clock, she was shocked to realize it was already past midnight. Maxim stood up, offering her a charming smile. "You look like you could use a change of scenery," he said, his voice full of mystery. "What do you say we make tonight unforgettable?" Before she could think twice, Serena nodded, her heart racing for reasons she couldn't fully understand. She followed him out of the bar, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't care where the night would lead. She wasn't running from her past anymore. Tonight, she was running toward something unknown. Something that felt like it could be the beginning of her healing. In the days following her impulsive wedding in Miami, Serena found herself slowly adjusting to a life she hadn't anticipated. Maxim Veil, her new husband, was a man who lived by his own rules, a man who commanded attention without ever raising his voice. Yet in their quiet moments together, she realized he was someone who understood the complexity of her pain and didn't push her to forget it. Instead, he offered her something far more valuable: space to heal. The Veil family was a world of wealth and influence, a world Serena had never known but was now intimately entwined with. The luxury of Maxim's penthouse and the opulence of their life together could have been overwhelming, but Maxim moved through it all with an ease that made it feel like a natural fit. He never forced her into the spotlight, but instead allowed her to carve out a space for herself. It was his quiet strength, his ability to be present without being overbearing, that made her feel safe in this new life. Serena had spent years pouring herself into her art, defining herself through her creations. But now, as Mrs. Maxim Veil, she found herself rediscovering the joy of painting in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Maxim had given her the top-floor studio in their penthouse, an expansive space with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Miami skyline. The view was breathtaking, but it was the space itself, the way it allowed her to create without distractions, that truly took her breath away. It felt like a gift, one that allowed her to reconnect with the part of herself she had lost somewhere between betrayal and heartbreak. The mornings were spent with her art, lost in the process of color and form, the afternoons with Maxim as they explored the city, or stayed in and shared quiet meals. But despite the serenity of her new life, there were moments when Serena would catch herself thinking about her past. She hadn't expected the weight of it to lift so easily, and there were days when the ghosts of Theodore and Sophia would haunt her, their faces still lingering in the shadows of her thoughts. The betrayal they had inflicted on her seemed like a distant memory. But it was still there, lurking in the corners of her mind, waiting to resurface when she least expected it. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet, Maxim returned home from a day of meetings. He found her in the studio, absorbed in a new piece she had begun that morning. The painting was wild, chaotic, a stark contrast to the calm serenity that surrounded her in the penthouse. It was the kind of piece that demanded attention, a raw expression of everything she had been feeling in the past few months. Maxim stood silently in the doorway, watching her for a moment before stepping into the room. "You're making something beautiful," he said softly, his voice reverberating in the quiet space. Serena turned to face him, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I'm trying," she replied, her tone light but with an underlying sincerity. "Sometimes, I think I'm just trying to make sense of all this chaos." Maxim's gaze softened as he crossed the room to stand beside her. "The chaos is what makes it real, Serena. It's what makes the beauty shine through." She looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. He had always seen her for who she truly was, even when she hadn't been able to see it herself. In him, she had found something she never expected. A love that didn't seek to fix her or erase her past, but one that embraced every part of her, both the broken and the whole. As she stood there, her hand resting on the canvas, Serena realized something profound. This life, this new chapter with Maxim, wasn't about escaping her past. It was about accepting it. It was about understanding that her journey, the hurt, the loss, the betrayal, had shaped her into the woman she was today. And now, with Maxim by her side, she was ready to step forward into a future that wasn't defined by what had been taken from her, but by what she was now choosing for herself. The days that followed were filled with new beginnings. Serena's art began to flourish once again, and her relationship with Maxim deepened. There were still moments of doubt, of fear, but they were fleeting. They were overshadowed by the love they shared, the kind of love that was both gentle and fierce, a love that allowed her to be vulnerable while also reminding her of her strength. Maxim never pushed her to be anyone other than who she was. And with him, Serena had learned that true freedom wasn't about running away from the past, it was about embracing the future. No matter how uncertain it seemed. The life she had once known was gone, but the life she was building now felt more real, more vibrant than anything she had ever imagined. In Maxim's arms, she had found the freedom to be herself, to create, to love, and to heal. And for the first time in a long time, Serena felt at peace with the woman she was becoming. Serena had come to Miami hoping to escape the pain that Theodore and Sophia had left in her heart, but the distance between New York and Miami was not as vast as she had imagined. Despite the new city, the fresh start, and the sudden whirlwind of her marriage to Maxim, memories of her past would find their way back to her, creeping in during the quiet moments. She wasn't running from the past, though. She was learning to face it, to confront the shadows that still haunted her. One late afternoon, after a session in her studio, Maxim found her sitting on the balcony of their penthouse, looking out at the ocean. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of gold and purple, but Serena's expression was distant, lost in thought. He walked up behind her, sensing that something had been weighing on her mind for the past few days. "Serena?" Maxim's voice was soft but steady, like a steady anchor in the storm of her emotions. "Talk to me. What's bothering you?" She turned to look at him, her eyes a little tired but filled with gratitude. She had been married to Maxim for over a month now, and yet, sometimes, it still felt surreal. He had given her a life of luxury, stability, and warmth, everything she had once dreamed of. But the shadows of betrayal, of the life she'd had before, sometimes felt too heavy to shake off. "I keep thinking about him," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "About Theodore and Sophia. I know I shouldn't, but I do. I can't help it." Maxim's face softened, his gaze unwavering as he took a seat beside her. "You don't have to pretend to be over it. It was painful, Serena, and no matter how much time passes, it's okay to still feel hurt by it." Serena nodded slowly, appreciating his understanding. "It's just that I keep wondering what I missed, what I didn't see. I trusted them both so completely, and now I'm just left with questions. How long had it been happening? How could they betray me like that?" She paused, looking out at the horizon again, as if searching for answers in the orange glow of the setting sun. Maxim reached out, placing a comforting hand on hers, offering her the warmth and assurance she desperately needed. "They betrayed you, but that was their choice, Serena, not yours," Maxim said gently, his voice a steady reminder that the choices others made were beyond her control. "You didn't do anything wrong. You trusted them, and they broke that trust. That's on them, not you." Her throat tightened at his words. He was right. She had trusted them completely, believed in their love, in their friendship. The betrayal stung not just because of the deceit, but because it had been an assault on everything she had built her life on. But the more Maxim spoke, the more she realized he was right. She wasn't to blame. It wasn't her fault that they had betrayed her. She had given them everything, and it was their dishonesty that had shattered her, not her love for them. As she sat there, listening to Maxim's words and feeling his steady presence beside her, something began to shift inside Serena. She wasn't the same woman she had been when she boarded that plane to Miami. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but it no longer defined her. She could move forward. She could choose a new path. She had already taken the first step by leaving New York behind, by choosing to embrace the future Maxim offered her, even if it was unknown. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive them," Serena said quietly, her voice laced with a mixture of hurt and resolve. "But maybe I don't need to forgive them to move on. Maybe the only forgiveness I need is for myself, to stop blaming myself for trusting them." Maxim squeezed her hand, offering her a reassuring smile. "You don't need to forgive them to let go of the pain, but you do need to forgive yourself, Serena. You gave them your trust, and they broke it. But that doesn't make you weak or foolish. It just makes you human, and you're stronger for it." His words hit her deeply, like a wave washing away years of guilt and confusion. For the first time since the betrayal, Serena felt a sense of clarity. She didn't need to hold on to the anger or resentment that had been eating away at her. She could let it go. And with it, she could let go of the shadows that had followed her from New York. "I'm ready to move on," she whispered, the weight of her words sinking in. "I don't know what the future holds, Maxim, but I'm ready to find out. I'm ready to be the woman I'm meant to be, not the woman they left behind." Maxim smiled, his eyes full of pride and affection. "I believe in you, Serena. You've already come so far, and I'll be right here, every step of the way." In that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Serena realized that her past no longer had a hold on her. She had been broken, yes, but she was no longer defined by the betrayal that had nearly torn her apart. With Maxim by her side, she was free to choose her future. A future built not on the lies of the past, but on the strength and resilience she had found within herself. The pain would always be a part of her, but it would no longer be the thing that shaped her. It was time to let go and embrace the life she had ahead of her. As the days passed, Serena's life began to settle into a rhythm she hadn't expected. The transition from New York to Miami, from betrayal to an unexpected marriage with Maxim, had been nothing short of overwhelming. But in the midst of the chaos, she found herself rediscovering who she was. Every morning, she woke to the soft hum of the Miami cityscape below, the sun filtering through the towering windows of their penthouse. Maxim had given her more than just a home. He had given her the space to rebuild, to reignite the spark of creativity that had once defined her. She spent her days in the top-floor studio Maxim had gifted her, a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the endless blue of the ocean. It was in this sanctuary that she could finally breathe again, lost in the strokes of her brush, painting her emotions into vivid works of art. Miami, with its warm air and endless sunshine, seemed to strip away the layers of the life she had once known. Here, she could be free. Free to create, free to heal, and free to just be. It was everything she had needed, but never knew she wanted. Yet the past had a way of creeping back in. She couldn't help but wonder if she had truly escaped it, or if she was simply masking the pain behind the opulence of her new life. One afternoon, while painting in her studio, she was interrupted by a call from her gallery director. The conversation was brief, but it carried the weight of something far heavier than just business. The opening of her next exhibit, a show that would feature her latest works, was just around the corner. Her mind flashed back to her last exhibition, the one she had planned with Theodore by her side. That exhibit, those dreams, everything now felt tainted by the memory of his betrayal. But something shifted inside her. The thoughts of Theodore, the confusion, the pain, she wasn't going to let it stop her anymore. "I'll be ready," Serena said firmly to her director, her voice steady and unwavering. When she hung up the phone, it felt as though a heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She didn't need to escape her past. She just needed to face it. And in doing so, she would take back the control she had once willingly given away. She looked over at the canvas she had been working on, the brushstrokes wild and full of emotion. It was chaotic, but beautiful, a representation of everything she had been through. She realized in that moment that her art, her story, was not defined by the people who had betrayed her. It was her own, and it was time to reclaim it. Maxim noticed the change in her almost immediately. Over dinner that evening, as they sat together in the quiet of their dining room, he looked at her with an almost searching gaze. There was a softness in his eyes, a tenderness that made her heart flutter. He had been her rock throughout this entire process, the one person who had never once wavered in his support for her. She had needed that, more than she had realized. "You seem different," Maxim said gently, his voice low and comforting. "It's like you've found something again." "What is it?" Serena paused for a moment, considering his words. He had always been able to see through her, to understand her in a way no one else had. It was one of the many reasons she had come to love him. "I've found myself," she replied softly, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I've been running from everything, Maxim. From the betrayal, from the pain, but I can't keep doing that. I need to face it, accept it, and move forward. It's the only way I'll truly heal." Maxim's expression softened even further. He reached across the table, taking her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. "You're stronger than you know, Serena," he said quietly, "and you don't have to do it alone. You've got me, and you've got your art. I'll be here, every step of the way." In that moment, Serena realized that this wasn't just about leaving New York behind. It wasn't about running from her past. It was about choosing a new future. A future where she could be her true self, where she could create, and where she could build the life she had always dreamed of, without the shadows of betrayal looming over her. The decision wasn't about forgetting or forgiving. It was about living fully, without regret. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation for her gallery opening. Serena worked tirelessly, pouring herself into her art, each piece a testament to her resilience and growth. When the night of the exhibit finally arrived, the gallery was filled with familiar faces. Critics, collectors, friends, all there to witness her comeback. Maxim stood by her side, as proud as ever, his presence a constant source of support. But it wasn't the accolades, the praise, or the attention that made the night special. It was the realization that she had done it on her own terms. She had faced the past, embraced it, and emerged stronger. The future, for the first time in a long time, felt bright. As she stood in front of one of her newest pieces, the centerpiece of the exhibit, Serena couldn't help but smile. The chaos of her life had given way to something beautiful. Her journey was far from over, but it had already led her to a place she never thought she would reach. A place of peace, of clarity, and of hope. And that, she realized, was the greatest masterpiece she could ever create. The story of Serena is one of profound transformation, resilience, and the power of choosing a new path despite the pain of betrayal. It teaches us that our past does not define our future. While it's easy to become consumed by hurt and regret, true strength lies in our ability to let go, embrace the present, and move forward with purpose. Serena's journey reminds us that healing isn't linear. There will be moments of doubt, moments when the past feels like it's holding us back. But when we choose to confront that pain and use it to fuel our growth, we create something beautiful from the chaos. Ultimately, the story encourages us to never lose sight of who we are, even in the face of adversity. Serena found her voice again through her art, and in doing so, she reclaimed her power. Life will always throw challenges our way, but it's how we rise from them that truly matters. We all have the capacity for reinvention, to start anew when the old no longer serves us. And with the right support, we can heal and build the life we deserve. Where are you watching from? We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more inspiring stories. Join us on this journey of transformation and growth. Together, we can create a community where healing and strength are celebrated.